My name's Colin Castell and I'm the Deputy Dean for Learning and Teaching in the School of Engineering. Over the next few minutes I'm going to be sharing some tips with you that I hope are useful. I hope they help you to develop your teaching skills as tutors. I'm going to be focusing on two statements from the GTS survey. Students respond to these statements. They either strongly agree or they strongly disagree. Ultimately this creates a score, and this score reflects their perception of you. And this is an important score because it is used to help you with your professional development. The two questions that I'm going to be focusing on will be that the teaching staff are extremely good at explaining things, and that the teaching staff work hard to make this course interesting. So let's start off with the first statement. The teaching staff are extremely good at explaining things. If you're going to explain something, obviously you need to understand it. And the more you can understand it, the more confident you're going to be about explaining it. Understand it as deeply as you possibly can. You should be interested in this, really, if you're teaching. If you're not interested in it, why are you teaching it? So understand it as best you can. It's not just about your level of understanding, though. The first place to start as a teacher is trying to understand how much your students understand. Don't just take it for granted that they're at a certain level and you need to bring them up. Their levels are going to be at a variety of places. Everybody learns at a different rate. Everybody gets those eureka moments at a different time. So understand your students. Understand from what point you're taking them from to where they need to be. So when you've worked out what you need to explain, you need to work out how you're going to explain it. So come up with a logical structure. Plan your explanation. Have a clear roadmap in your head of where you're going. Think about a variety of ways that you can walk down the path to explain this piece of information. Don't just use words. You might be able to see that students are listening, but are they really hearing what you're saying? So don't just use words. Think about other things that you can use. Think about pictures. Think about activities. Think about actions. Activities actually are a very important aspect of learning. And if you can build activities into your explanations, students are going to learn a whole lot more. Aristotle once said that if you want people to learn how to do, then get them to do. Try and plan some actions into your teaching. Bring along some pictures, bring along some examples, and make it as interesting as you possibly can. The more you throw into it, the more students are going to perceive that you're good at explaining things. If you're giving a presentation as a tutor, start with a very dynamic opening. Hook them and reel them in. Once you've got their attention, it's easier to retain it than if it's lost and you have to catch it halfway through. But whatever context you're explaining things in, whether it's a workshop, tutorial, or a demonstration lecture, always be clear and be concise. Think about how eloquently you're explaining things. You may have to brush up on your language skills. Students need to be able to understand you. Think about your vocal delivery. What I mean by that is consider the way that you're talking to students. Treat them with respect. Show them respect by the way that you talk to them. Learn their names. Use the warm-up time of a tutorial or lecture when people are just coming in to start up a conversation. Find out what their names are and use their names. You won't learn the name of everybody in the class, of course not. But if you're using the names of a few, the rest of the class is going to see that you care about them as individuals. Consider your body language as well. Are you standing in a confident manner? Or are you looking very nervous and sheepish as if you don't understand the subject matter? All of these aspects go together to create your delivery, or the way that you deliver, and they affect the student's perception of how well you explain things. What are the key points? What are the key learning threshold concepts? These are really pivotal aspects of what you're trying to teach. If the students don't understand those specific bits, they're not going to understand anything that comes later. Make sure that at these points you stop and you reflect. If you've got any doubt about whether the students are understanding it, stop and ask them. Don't always believe what they tell you though. They're going to want you to think that they're understanding. So look at them. Listen to their answer, but watch their answer as well. Watch their body language. And if you've got any doubt about whether they're understanding, go back and try it again. Keep your explanations very contextual, and if you can, use engineering examples. Continually monitor the understanding of the students. As I say, ask them questions, listen and look, and if needs be, change your approach, change the way that you're explaining. Remember, you should have a goodie bag with you that's got examples in it, maybe props, maybe you've got some activities that you can use. So if one thing isn't working, be prepared to use another tactic. Make the explanations interesting as well. You're not just going to read from a book. Students could do that. You've got to add value. You've got to make your explanations really interesting so that you engage the students. So that's actually a good segue onto the next point. How can you be interesting? How can you make this course interesting? Well, if you're explaining things well, then you're halfway there. But what else can you do to make the whole occasion perceived to be a very interesting occasion where the students actually believe that you're quite charismatic? Well, the first place to start is for the students to understand what they need to know. So clearly define the process of the required outcomes and what the consequences will be. This way students are motivated to learn. They're motivated to learn because they realise that their learning journey is going to have consequences. The problem with this though, this is what's called extrinsic motivation. They're being motivated because they want to do well at the end of it. They want to pass the exam, they want to do well in the assignment. It's not really going to develop their level of interest throughout the journey though. It's not really going to engage them in the class. What you really need to focus on is what is known as intrinsic motivation. And this comes about by you being a role model, by you becoming interesting, by you showing that you're interested. And this way you engage the students and you make it enjoyable. So let's focus on a few of these key words here. Let's focus on interesting. Let's focus on interested. And let's focus on enjoyable. So how can you be interesting? You have to go about this with conviction. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. This is not about picking up a paycheck. This is about teaching people. Be passionate. Inspire the students' curiosity. Be prepared to be opinionated. What I mean by that is have an opinion on the subject matter. They've read the book. Well, they should have read the book. They've listened to the lecturer. Now it's an opportunity for you to give your take on the problem. Maybe the way that you explain it will be the way that they understand, the way that they finally understand. Be confident. Be different. Explain things differently. Don't explain the way that you were taught. Explain the way that you would like to have been taught. Use props. Use some fantastic examples and be truthful. Be truthful to yourself in what you know. But above all, be truthful to the student. If a student asks you a really probing question that's outside your comfort zone, don't be scared to tell them you don't know. The worst hole that you can dig yourself into is a hole into your own bullshit. If you don't know the answer, tell the student, but tell them that you'll get back to them as soon as you can and get back to them in a timely fashion. The best way of being interesting, though, is to show that you're interested in the student. Show that you care about the student. As I said before, find out their name. Use their names. You won't know the name of every student, but use the name of a few students in front of the class, and the rest of the class will know that you see them as people. Empathise with the student. Throw yourself out of your body into the body of the student. Imagine looking back at yourself and decide whether or not you'll be happy with what you see. Listen. You've got two of these and one of these. Listen to show that you're interested. Listen actively. That means don't have some sort of response already planned. Your response is hugely dependent on what you hear. Understand the student. Understand the level of understanding the student has. Don't assume anything. Find out by talking to the student. Always be constructive. Don't ever put a student down. If you put students down, they'll hate you for it. So always teach in a constructive, encouraging way. Learning should be fun. Make sure the students enjoy being in your presence. If they don't enjoy being in your presence, they're not going to give you a very good write-up, are they? So make sure that they enjoy being in your presence. Don't be a clown. Don't go over the top. Don't be fake. Don't be phony. Just have a good time yourself with the students and they'll enjoy your company. Don't be afraid to have a laugh. As I said, don't be a clown, use appropriate humour, but try to make sure that the whole environment, the whole lesson, the whole occasion is an enjoyable one. Get the students to do enjoyable stuff. So now I'd like you to do something. I'd like you to think of an occasion of when you last tutored. A particular occasion when you think perhaps you could have done things differently. Perhaps it wasn't the best explanation, the best time you had as a tutor. Think about that one particular occasion. Now, reflecting upon that occasion, and given time that you've got to think about it, what would you have done differently? So write down in a few words your plan and your intended delivery methods. Also, write down 5 things that you think now you could have done differently to inspire the students' curiosity. Write them down and bring them with you to the workshop. Thank you.